This is Mayor Oliver Gilbert, and we've gone virtual. While we're staying at home, remaining safe, I want to make sure that the activities that we enjoy together as a community could be brought to you online. Join me for healthy cooking and nutrition with common threads. Let's cook and stay healthy together. Bon appetit.
Hi everybody, I'm Karen Marble. I'm a chef instructor with Common Threads. For those of you who don't know, Common Threads is a national nonprofit. We come into the communities and to schools to teach children and families all about healthy cooking, healthy eating, healthy lifestyles. And I am really pleased to be here today with the Mayor Gilbert and the City of Miami Gardens virtual experience to make a healthy recipe with you today. So today we are going to be making a sweet potato, black bean, and corn taco. So those of you who all you carnivores who just rolled your eyes at me, hang in there because it's a real hearty dish. The nice thing about this is actually a vegan recipe, but you could take it and you can alter it to your likings and to your family's desires. But it's a great way to get your kids cooking, get your family cooking together. When you cook with your kids, they are more likely to eat what they cook. So let's get started. Okay, so first I'm going to start with a taco seasoning. Now you can buy a packet of taco seasoning or a bottle in the grocery store, but when you do that, it's going to cost you a couple of dollars, maybe up from there, or you can make your own at home, and that way you can adjust it to what you want. So I've made a really easy taco seasoning recipe, and I just used half a teaspoon of ground cumin. I used a teaspoon of salt. I've used a little bit less just because I like things less salty. That's the beauty of making your own seasoning. Half a teaspoon of garlic powder and 1 tablespoon of chili powder. So it's a real smoky, warm taco seasoning for our recipe. So I made this ahead of time because what I did was I took my sweet potato and I roasted it. I had diced it. Now, you don't have to peel a sweet potato. A sweet potato, you can just give it a good scrubbing. Can cut it up or you can peel it, whatever your preference is. There is a lot of nice healthy properties still in the skin, and fiber. So if you keep that, you're keeping those properties in. I roasted this sweet potato for this recipe. When you boil potatoes, things like that, you lose some of the nice soluble fiber that's in the sweet potato. So I used half of my taco seasoning recipe and I roasted my sweet potato, chopped it to a nice 1-inch dice, and tossed it with a tablespoon of olive oil, spread it out on a baking sheet, put it in a preheated 425-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, just until it was a little tender. So it's got a nice smoky taste to it. It's just a little bit tender, and you can do it ahead of time. You can do it the day before. You can do it the night for the next day. It just makes the preparation a little easy. So we have our sweet potato. We're going to use half of an onion. We're going to chop that up. 1 cup of black beans. Now, I used canned black beans. These happen to be low sodium black beans. I still rinse them. Give them a good rinse if you're using canned beans because there is that sodium. You can rinse it away, drain them, and then it's a great way to use them in your recipes. If you prefer, you can use dried beans. You just have to boil them ahead of time or soak them overnight in some cool water. Okay, then we have half a cup of corn, frozen corn thawed. You can use canned corn, you could use fresh corn, whatever you want. But it's half a cup of corn and 1 small stalk of celery or a half of a large one and 1 clove of garlic. Okay, so let's get started. All right, I'm going to start with chopping my onion because that's going to take the longest to cook. So I'm going to bend it down here. Now we have 3 steps to cooking: plank, slice, and dice. So I have 1 onion here. My first cut, I'm going to use my bear claw so that my fingers are not anywhere near that knife blade. The best way to cut is to have a nice sharp knife. A dull knife is what leads to cuts. So I'm going to use my knife. I can actually do a bridge over it so that it doesn't wobble on my cutting board. And now I've done my first cut, which gives me my plank. It gives me a nice flat surface to work on. Wipe off my cutting board because I got a little bit of the root of the onion there. And I give myself a nice flat surface to work on. Don't crowd yourself on a cutting board. Give yourselves plenty of room to cut. I'm going to cut off my end. So I've done my first cut, which was my plank. Now I'm going to cut off my end, and I'm going to peel off the outside layer of my onion because it's a little papery there, a little brown. So peel off that outside layer. Don't be afraid to get rid of the outside layer of your onion. Sometimes it may take 2 layers to get to something that's really nice. So I've got my plank, my first stage. Now I'm going to do my slices. Again, I'm going to keep my knife tip on the board. I never want to slam my knife down. That will ruin the blade of your knife. So I'm going to keep my knife tip on the board, use my bear claw, my tight grip on my fingers, so that even if my knife blade gets close to my fingers, it won't cut the fingers. So I did my plank, now I'm going to do my slice. I just do a nice, slow, even slice through the onion. And see how I get close to my fingers, but there's no danger of cutting myself because my fingers are bent. I get rid of the bottom, the core of the onion. Now I have my slices. So the third step of our cutting is dice. I'm going to give myself plenty of room on the cutting board. I'll take a few slices, stack them up. Again, with my bear claw, tip of the knife is on the cutting board. I just run my knife through my onion so I get a nice, even dice. What's nice about this is then your onion will cook at the same time without any of it becoming overcooked or undercooked or burning. So I'll move this to the side, give myself plenty of room. I'm going to actually heat up my pan so that gets nice and hot. Start that up. And while I'm slicing up the rest of my onion here, my half onion that we're going to use for our recipe. Okay, so I'll stack my slices. Again, my knife stays on the board, and I just run my knife gently through with and a little bit goes on the floor. That's okay. We'll pick that up later. Okay, so I've got my half an onion nicely diced, nice even dice on that. Clear off my knife. Now I'm going to I have an electric skillet here that I'm going to be using so I don't turn away to go to the oven. I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of oil. So I don't have to measure exactly, but I know that that's about 2 tablespoons. Oh, by the way, when I did cook the sweet potato, when I roasted that, I tossed it with a tablespoon of olive oil first and then put it out in the pan and roasted that. So I did forget to mention the olive oil. Okay, so we've got half an onion. I'm going to wait for this to get nice and hot, which it already is. You want to heat up your pan first and then get your oil in there nice and hot so that when you put your vegetables in, they come to a nice quick sear. So I'm going to put those in. And you can hear that nice sizzle because that oil was nice and hot. Okay. So now we have to cook. While those are cooking, the onion is going to take a few minutes to caramelize and cook nicely. So I'm going to work on cutting up the rest of my vegetables. So we have a stalk of celery that I've already washed. It's nice and clean. Move my spatula out of the way. I'm going to cut off the end, get rid of that, cut up the back end, and I'm going to cut it in half just so it lays flat on my board. And again, knife's tip stays on the cutting board, and all I do with my bear claw is push my vegetable, like celery, right through. So we get a nice chop on that celery. Okay, now I'm going to actually put my celery in with my corn because those are going to go into the pan at the same time, just so they're out of the way, so I can then chop up my garlic. Okay, so we've got that. We've got the celery and corn ready to go in. I'll give the onions a little stir so they don't cook too much while we mince the garlic. Okay, so we have plank, slice, and dice, and then we have what's called mincing. Mincing is a much smaller chop, and that's what we do with little things like garlic, because you don't want any big pieces of garlic. Now this garlic still has the skin on it. This is an easy way to take that papery skin off. You put the piece of garlic on the cutting board. You can either use the heel of your hand, or carefully you put the knife on top of it and give it a good whack, and that will take the skin right off of the garlic. You can dispose of that. Again, now with a little tiny bear claw, I have a rogue piece of celery. I cut off my end, and I'm going to do little tiny slices. of my garlic. And now I'm going to do what's called rock and chop. Hold the knife with a nice grip, either the fingers on the side or just a good strong grip on the handle. Then the other hand that goes on top of the blade, fingers way up so that there's no chance of it getting, oh, I had to turn my heat down a little bit. My onions are cooking a little too fast. Stir those around a little. They're caramelizing faster than I expected them to. That's okay. Again, rocking and chopping my garlic. I'm going to just raise and lower the knife through the garlic so that I get a nice fine mince. Then I push it all together into a pile again. I push what's on the knife off onto the cutting board and run my knife through the other way. Again, my fingers are up. This is called rock and chop because the knife never comes off the board. We're using the natural curve of the knife to go through and do the chopping for us, to do the hard work. Okay, so the onions are now caramelized. A little bit more than I planned on, but that's actually the way I like them. I'm going to add my garlic in now. Get all that delicious garlic off of the knife and give that another quick stir. Get that nice and brown. And the smell, what's really nice when you're working with your kids is that cooking really uses all the senses. We eat with our eyes first and so we want everything to look beautiful. We want to use lots of colors. You've got the sound of the sizzling while it's cooking. We use the smell. We've got the steam coming off that has that wonderful smell of the onions caramelizing and that garlic cooking. Okay, and now I'm going to add my celery and my corn to my onions and garlic and let those cook up a little bit. This is a real easy recipe, guys. It's a great launching point for anything that you might have in your refrigerator or in your pantry. The nice thing about using beans is that they are many reasons. One of them happens to be they are much, much cheaper than any type of meat, poultry, or fish. They're about 3 times less expensive. They are very high in fiber, in protein. They are a plant-based protein rather than an animal-based protein like meats. Okay, now I'm going to add my beans to this. And they have lots of vitamins, good dose of protein, folate, and they are cost-effective. Turn that down so it's not quite so loud. Okay, so we have the beautiful colors now. We've got that bright yellow corn, the black beans. Now you can adjust this if your family prefers a different kind of bean. You could use that. If you do want to do something with a meat and you don't want to use the beans, just substitute. Substitute what works for you. Okay, so we have the colors there, the green, the yellow, the black, the brown from the beans, and now we're going to add these sweet potatoes and get everything heated through. Now this is a real versatile recipe. If you didn't want to do it into a taco, you could make it into a salad. You could serve it over any type of greens, maybe make a vinaigrette with some fresh lime, some olive oil, or you could even make it into a bowl with some type of grain. You could use some barley or farro or quinoa, and you could even, my family daughter had suggested that she's gluten-free. She was going to use it with some corn chips, some tortilla chips, whole grain tortilla chips. So you've got these beautiful colors. It smells wonderful, so we're using the sense of smell too. So cooking really is all about science. It's about the blending of ingredients. It's about smelling and tasting and adjusting. Now I'm going to add the rest of my taco seasoning. Add that. And I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of water just to add a little bit of liquid, and you can hear that as it hits the pan and it starts to sizzle. The flavors are blending together. Okay, so I'm going to let those sit for a minute while I get the rest of my tacos ready. Okay. So I'm going to be using some whole grain tortillas. Turn that down a little bit. That's it. I'm using whole grain tortillas, whole wheat tortillas. These are good. It's an easy swap to do rather than using white flour tortillas. You get a lot more fiber. I happen to prefer the taste of whole grains because it just has a nutty flavor and it makes it a more rich experience. So I'm using a whole grain tortilla that I have put on a plate. I'm all ready. Now, I'm going to do, what am I going to put on my tacos? Now, yeah, I could put sour cream on them and make it not healthy, but I'm going to use some healthy fats. I'm going to use an avocado. So the way to cut an avocado carefully is it's probably not something you want your kids doing. You want to take the avocado with a bridge and you just want to turn it. And you want to cut, basically just run your knife, not through the avocado because the pit is in the center, but just run it all the way around, put the knife down, and just give it a twist. Twist your hands in opposite directions. Now this is a great thing for the kids to do so they can scoop out the avocado, but you got to take out the pit first. So you want to give it a little smack, get that pit out. There we go. Put that to the side. And then you can just take a spoon. This is the part that the kids can do. They can scoop out the avocado and either make it into, mash it up and make it into a guacamole, or you can make it, we can make it really pretty and do some slices. So I'm going to do some slices that I'm going to lay on top of my taco. Okay, so I have my taco slices, and I have tomato. So I like a little bit of chopped tomato on this as well. I'm going to move my avocado slices to the side so I don't do what I said not to do, which is crowding. Let's keep this cooking. Keep that warm. It smells delicious. I wish you guys could smell this. And it's blending nicely. All those flavors are combining to give it a really, really smoky, hearty, rich taste. Okay. So then I'm going to just take my tomato. I'm going to slice it in half so that it's planked. Then I'm going to do my slices because I want to make this a little bit of a diced tomato to sprinkle on top. I can't seem to find the exact right temperature. And then I'm going to turn my slices and make a little dice. Okay, so now I can assemble my taco. So I have my taco, a little slice of lime here, just as a little extra flavoring, another layer of flavor. So I'm going to take my tortilla, and I'm going to take my spatula to the side, grab a spoon, I'm just going to layer that taco filling right in there. And then I'm going to take some of my tomato, sprinkle that on top. I like the cold of the tomato with the warmth of the sweet potatoes and the beans and the corn. It sort of gives it a brighter taste, it brightens it up. Then I'm going to take some slices of my avocado and lay them across. And you've got a beautiful, rinse my fingers off a little bit. Give a little squeeze of lime. We've got a beautiful dish. Nice taco that can be served when we can have families together again and friends together again. It's nice to make a taco bar like this. Maybe this is your vegetarian one or vegan one. You can have meats, you can have fish, you can have shrimp. You can make them into bowls, like I said, with quinoa, rice, or farro. You can do any combinations, but it works out really nicely. It's a nice way to pull together a taco meal, and it's a good way for your family to get together and work. So again, we have our sweet potatoes that I roasted with a little bit of olive oil just on a pan. I just roasted them for 45 minutes. Now you can, like I said, you can peel the potato if you want to, or you can leave it with the skin on, just give it a really good scrub. The potato has a lot of fiber in it. Yes, the sweet potato has more sugar than a regular potato, but it's something that's a nice savory flavor. It's got that umami that everybody likes. So it's a really good, nice way to do things. So, okay, so I'm going to do a little bit more chopping so that we can just practice the chopping again. Okay, so again, we want to do, it's really important to work with your kids on the chopping. So like I said, we have 3 steps of cutting. We have plank, slice, and dice. So again, I'm using my other half of an onion now just to go over this one more time. Okay, so I have my plank. I've got my flat surface. I'm going to cut off my end. And I'm going to peel back that first layer of the onion. This is a great thing to practice with your kids. It's a great way for them to learn to use a knife. When they hold a knife, they should grab onto the knife as if they're shaking hands with the knife. They can put their forefinger and thumb on either side of the blades, or just hold onto the knife with a good strong grip. They shouldn't be able to wobble the knife in their hands, and they should try not to put their finger on top of the blade. Again, we use a bear claw. Bear claw is the fingers are tightly pulled in so that fingers don't end up getting cut in the process. So I'm going to run my knife just gently through. This is called the tip and fulcrum method because the tip of the knife really never leaves the board. Just goes up and down on my board without ever leaving the board. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the end of my onion. Drop it in my garbage. You know, one of the things that's really nice to do with your live garbage, which is, to me, is anything that either walked on the earth or comes from the earth. So anything that is a vegetable, a fruit, eggshells, meat byproducts, to put it in a live garbage and save it, it can be used for composting. And it's a really good way to teach kids about gardening, maybe, and anything that they grow, they're more likely to want to eat. So I do save my live garbage for a compost. Okay, so I have my slices of onion. We give myself plenty of room on the cutting board. And again, nice claw, tight bear claw. I'm gonna run my knife through. Nice and slowly, so they've got a nice dice. Now, if I wanted to make it really, really small, minced it like I do with the garlic, I can do my rock and chop. Again, nice grip on the knife, either forefinger and thumb on the blade or just a nice grip around the handle. Fingers are way up, and then we just rock the knife, use the natural curve of that knife to rock it back and forth on the cutting board. And then you get a nice fine mince, which is good for soups, which is good for, if someone doesn't like the taste of onions, it's a nice way for sauces to make it nice and small. And this is the way that's nice, it's a safe way for the kids to learn to use knives. I use chef knives all the time with my kids in schools. They get a little nervous when they first see them, but then they realize that it's something they can do and it's a really big accomplishment for them, which is really great. So again, we have a really nice opportunity here to make a meal at home with your family, a whole grain tortilla, or maybe you put it over a salad, or you put it over grains to make it into some sort of burrito bowl. It's much better, much healthier than going out to fast food and getting it made. You get to make it on their own. And rather than using white tortilla or white rice for their bowls, maybe they'll use a whole grain tortilla and they'll try something new. Now, if your family does not like beans, maybe they'll use something else in the tortilla. You may want to mix you can mix any of these ingredients with any other type of protein. You could use chicken, you could use shrimp, you could use fish, anything that you want for your tortillas to make it personal for your family. Do not forget when you're using canned beans to please rinse and drain them. That's, even though it may say reduce sodium on the can, there's still a lot of added sodium that we want to get rid of. So you want to make sure that you rinse it really well. A minimal amount of oil is needed when you're cooking your vegetables. When you're cooking your onions and your garlic, you could use mainly water to cook them. You don't really need much oil in your pan. So, okay, so I'm going to chop up. Now, the other thing you can do is you can take your whole wheat tortillas. I'm going to take the onions off of here. You can make your own chips for this. Now, a nice way to do that is take your whole grain chip, your whole wheat tortillas. You might want to take a few of them, make a stack. Stack them on your cutting board. And you can cut them into little wedges. So I'm going to cut in half. I'm going to fold that in half. And then I'm going to cut them again into smaller pieces. Now, I would take these and lay them out on a pan, spray them with just a little bit of spray, bake them in the oven for about 15 about 10 minutes on a 350 oven. They'll get nice and crispy, and they're a great way to just dip in. It's a great party dip rather than using some high fat dips to work with. So this is a real versatile recipe that you can use in lots of different ways. Get cooking with your family, get cooking with your kids, and enjoy the kitchen, and let's spend time together and get healthy. Thanks for joining me, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed today's session. I did. Join us every Thursday at 1 p.m. on Facebook Live for healthy cooking and nutrition classes with Common Threads. If you want to view the session again, visit cmgengage.com/virtual. See you next week. Now tell me, do you really think you can walk